How did going to communities help you? Because you gave your first talk in 2017. Like the demo went like horribly wrong and people wanted to like come and help you. It can be like hitting your rock bottom at that point, right?
I would say the community is a very strange place, to be honest. I still think it's a strange place because if you fail on giving a talk, you don't feel despair. And I've seen this, it's not just me, I know this from a lot of people. You don't feel despair, you feel an adrenaline rush. And you think the next time I get a chance to do this, I'm going to do better. And then you double down.
First, I've known you for a couple of years now. I think about 6, 7 years already. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Fuzz. What is your background? How do you get to where you are now?
I've been in the industry for over 21 years. I started as a Java developer back in the day, back in India. That's where I'm from. But I was born and brought up in Dubai. So primarily, like any other NRI kid, I would be shipped off to India, saying, "Go and connect with your roots, learn engineering, get manufactured into an engineer, and then get a job somehow, right? Figure it out." And that's what I did. I went back to India, did my the courses and stuff and all over there. Joined in Bangalore for the first time. I had joined a company called Huawei. Started there as a Java developer. So over the years, I grew into multiple roles: a senior developer, architect, and so on and so forth. And along the way in that journey, I landed up in Malaysia. So it was, in fact, exactly 10 years ago, probably 10 years and maybe 3 weeks ago, that I landed in Malaysia for the first time. And I've put an ode to Malaysia recently on LinkedIn also about this, where I talked about how I reached over there and how the people and the country itself has helped me a lot over the years to grow. And that's kind of like where I got aligned with a lot of the community work that I was working on. Before this, I was predominantly a passive community participant. My journey with community probably started in Bangalore, which is known as the Silicon Valley of India. And I used to attend a lot of meetups over there for Ruby on Rails and even for the initial things of data. This is even before the cloud era, and we would talk about things, and people would show, and I would be in awe of all these presenters. How are they able to present these things and show live coding, which is amazing as a skill. It still is. It still amazes me when people can do that. And but it was passive, right? And in Malaysia, when I came in, I the first thing I did was I tried to find communities where I could go and attend, right? Not even to speak, not even to like contribute in any meaningful way, just to exist in the community, because I thought, okay, at least I learn from people. And I think that's one of the driving forces for me in doing anything community, whether it is from a participation perspective as a passive participant, or even as someone who's actively doing stuff, is that I'm always willing to listen to others and also learn from them, because I always feel that there's something they know that I don't know, right? And I want to know that, right? And so that's how in Malaysia I kind of started in one of the communities that is still going strong. So KLJS, woohoo, if anyone from Kuala Lumpur is listening into this, KLJS was one of my first places where I hit ground, and I attended that place. And I still remember in 2017 was the first time I gave a talk publicly in a community, where I went in to the meetup. And they had lightning talks at that time, so it's like 3 to 5 minutes, show something new that you've done. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I said, yeah, I'm coming in. And everyone's like, woohoo, woohoo. And then I go in front of the stage, and then I log in, I connect my laptop, and then I open the terminal, I open Vim, and then I forget how to save the file when I edit it. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And then people come in, they try to help me, and I'm like, oh, this is a disaster. But that's how it started, right? And then over the years, I connected quite a bit with the people over there. And along the way, Google Cloud Developer Community happened in Kuala Lumpur. And I thank everyone in the community for supporting that initiative. I thank folks from my work at Randstad at that time. Some of them, we have common friends over there also. And they are folks who helped me through thick and thin in growing that community. We had help from a lot of other communities also. To help grow it. It was never seen as a competition. It was always seen as, okay, there is somebody who wants to, I wouldn't say help, I would say like is also having similar goals as ours, where they want to upskill the community. Okay, let's give them also like a push and let them go ahead. And grew that from scratch. And by the time I left, and joined where you are right now in Amazon Web Services. It had grown to a strong community of 1,800-ish people in the span of like 1.5 years. And yeah, as they say, the rest is history from there.
Yeah, you sent my CV to AWS.
I mean, that's how the circle, right? The circle goes, right? And also the community work continued, even though in AWS I had to leave the Google thing because, of course, they're seen as competition. I still continue with the community work. I'm thankful to the leadership over there in AWS at that time in Malaysia and in Singapore that they recognize that they one of the achievements I would say in the first few months in AWS at that time was I wrote a paper that still defines a lot of things that happen in Singapore and in Malaysia for developer engagement. And that paper helped to build a new team over there, which I then joined later. And then that led me to my last role at Amazon Web Services, which was the developer advocate role in the Middle East, which is when I came back to Dubai. And I thought, okay, whatever goodness I've learned in Malaysia, let me take it back to where I've come from. So kind of like a big circle in the end, and then built it from there. But we'll probably talk a bit more about how those journeys are a bit different later.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how like communities can open up doors, and then also you get to know a lot of people. A lot of people that you tend not to meet during your day job, and then you suddenly you get exposed to all these people. Your network grows.
It does. It
That's
does.
something. Yeah.
It's
It,
funny you said that. It's funny
yeah.
you said that because I still say it's the community in Malaysia who led me to AWS, not just because I did the community work. It's because someone in the community referred me at AWS. They told someone at AWS, hey, we know this dude. This guy is really good as an architect. And of course, I had imposter syndrome, which I still do. And they recommended me and said, hire this guy, right? And that's how the process kickstarted because I never thought in my life I would ever join FANG ever, right? Any of those big
Hmm.
tech companies. So I'm grateful to the community in Malaysia for this. And if you are listening to this, you know who you are. Thank you so much for getting me to where I am right now.
So first, you have about like 20 plus years of like engineering experience. You bring in like an architect as a consultant. You started off from like ground up. You just shared how you were in India, and then moved to Dubai, and then moved to Malaysia. Quite an interesting journey, right? Like throughout these markets, you saw how things are changing from one market to another as well. Like you were building products, you were leading teams as well. Like, tell us the juicy stuff. Tell us the most challenging parts that you had as an engineering leader.
I mean, I would say there are different levels of the kind of challenges that we've gone through. I wouldn't probably want to start listing all of them. We'll be here like the whole night. But there are things. Okay, so one thing I would say is, and this kind of connects with what's happening right now. We see in the market with the whole AI hype, and I
Mhm.
still kind of call it a hype, even though it is changing the way we're working. Is that new technologies will always come and disrupt whatever was there before, and it also means it disrupts behavior, right? It disrupts patterns. And I come from a time when we used to build monolith applications in the old days. It used to be just one code base. We used to have massive teams. Our development cycles used to be like once in 6 months we'll do a release, once a year we'll do like a massive release, and so on. And now we have reached a point where if you're not even building and deploying every day, you're probably too slow, right, in the market. So seeing how the metrics or the success criteria for what a team delivers on and whether they're delivering value change over the last 20 years, I think is one big shift that I've seen. From a juicy part, of course, I mean, I've heard of, I mean, I've experienced a lot of production horror stories. A lot of the memes that you see about, hey, someone deleted a database somewhere or someone deleted something in production, or maybe they misconfigured something and then the request never worked for a few hours. Well, I've been there. It's happened. I won't quote where because, companies are still listening, but it's happened, right? And people know about it. And I think one of the things that helped me throughout the years was having teams and managers who were supportive, right? Who understood that, okay, if we have failed, or if this person has failed at something doing in production, it's probably because we didn't put in guardrails, right? So seeing that kind of maturity in the industry grow and become the norm, right, where people expect, okay, fine, if I'm failing, then at least it's not just like about incompetence. It's about, having someone who can support me and then say, okay, hey, you know what, you've done this, let's try to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we saw that in much larger scale at AWS also, and I'm sure it's the same in other big tech companies like Google and so on and so forth, where you're not scared to fail, but but it's worse if you don't try, right? The other thing is that a lot for me, because I was kind of connected with the community in some form or the other over the years, it was always, I would say, puzzling to me when I would talk to people in my office and whichever teams I worked with and say, hey, I'm going to this meetup, do you want to come? And they're like, why? And I would say, no, you're going to meet people, you'll hear about, they're talking about this so and so topic, let's go and see. No, but I can read about this, or I can watch a YouTube video. And now in the last few years, everyone just says the same thing: I can just watch a course, why do I need to go to a meetup? What they don't realize is that there's a lot that you can gain by just going and meeting. Me just appearing in a meetup and then just meeting people got me to where I am right now, right? And you would see the same thing in any other place. So apart from this, I guess the AI stuff these days is definitely a bit nerve wracking. I think it is exhausting, to say the least. A lot of the news that's coming in about products, we kind of like spoke about that also early on. There's a massive customer acquisition issue among a lot of product companies, and which is why we are being overwhelmed as a customer or a consumer on Hacker News, for example, on YouTube and other places. That there's so many AI products going on. You're like, I mean, if AI
Mm.
is going to do all this, then why am I even here, right? You sometimes question your purpose in life, kind of a thing. So I still think that there are challenges that are evolving right now, and we
Mm.
as developers and builders in the community and the tech ecosystem in general are still figuring out things. But I can definitely say in the last 20 years, I think we are reaching slowly to that point where we can say that, hey, we have a discipline now of what building software looks like, of what automating things look like, which probably wasn't there. It was there to a certain extent, but now it's at scale in the last 20 years.
So, do you think these practices that you think, or the trends that you saw like past couple of years, has it been disrupted through AI, or did it get better with AI tools?
So, okay, my take on this, and of course, anyone who speaks on the internet should always put this disclaimer that it's their own personal take and nothing else, is that I think what happened with AI tools is that it lowered the barrier of entry for people to come into to technology and development in general. Especially, I'm talking about AI coding tools. The tools have helped people who probably could not code very well to come in and code. So it's lowered the barrier of entry for people who can come in. But at the same time, what it has done is it has also increased the ceiling for what we would think as competency, right? As what we
Mm.
would call as expertise, because now
Mm.
anyone can use a tool to do 80% of the work what someone else could do, right? And of course,
Yeah.
it's subjective 80% what it means. A good example is myself, right? I've been 21 years in the industry. I have built things across the stack, right? I used to do full stack even before it was called full stack, but I suck at UI development. I can't do UI for nuts, right? It's very hard for me to place buttons anywhere and then make sure that they all look nice. But when I see a good UI, like any other critique, I can say this is good, this is not good, right? And I struggled a lot. But ever since AI coding tools started evolving, I've been trying out
Mm.
those tools for the last couple of years. But in the last 6 months, I've had like a lot of strides where I'm building a lot of simple utilities and tools for my own consulting work purposes, where I'm helping to consolidate what people want to see and do other things. So for me, it's a big boon from a UI perspective. Would I go and claim I'm a UI developer, that I'm awesome in UI? Probably not. My conscience would probably not allow me to do that. But I would say that it has uncovered that there are certain skills that you had with certain people, which now you can also leverage yourself, which means
Mm.
those people need to level up, right? You have to, and this is the advice I've been giving to a lot of the youngsters who are affected by all of this, right? They say that I've spent 4 years, or I'm in uni right now, my curriculum is already outdated, right? It was already outdated before. Most universities have a very rigid curriculum,
Mm.
and now they're stuck because they're saying, okay, whatever I learn now is useless, right? I can't do this, I can't do that. And of course, there's a long discussion around that, but at least what I tell them is, see, what you need to understand is you need to figure out how you can create a new baseline for yourself with these tools, and then go up the value chain, right? How do you deliver value end of the day? This is what you need to talk about. So the tools are uncovering some of that, but they're also definitely creating some challenges. Workplaces, I think, are still struggling to understand how to leverage these tools and show that they're delivering value, because it has challenged their concept of what is competency. It has challenged their concept of what skills should a developer bring to the table at this point. And I'm just saying for developers and builders. I'm not saying about any non-technical role at this point who is also uh, either leveraging or affected by AI.
So the other day I was listening to one of the podcasts by one of our ex-Amazonian as well, yeah, a life engineer. So he had one person coming down and talking about this whole sort of situation where like the younger generation is very concerned about like, hey, am I learning the right thing? What would the future looks like, etc. And he was saying there are three options. One is it can be like you go into many apprentice programs as much as possible that you can find. That's one option. Second thing is if you find something adjacent to the discipline that you're at. For an example, he was giving, say you're passionate about golf, and then there's a golf startup who's looking for a support engineer.
Hmm.
You're a coder by heart, but if you think it makes sense, or maybe you can craft a path, right, from there onwards to become a developer, take that. And the third one is, which is the scary one, to become an entrepreneur. So he was giving like three options, because the reality is, these coding assistants are getting like really good at what they do.
There is, and it's funny you said that, because with coding tools in general, and I like the advice that they mentioned. I had something similar that I've given to people, but it's more direct. And I tell them, when a lot of people come in and tell me I've done so and so specialty and so degree in uni, or if they're trying to get into uni and they're saying, okay, I'm looking at AI, and before this it used to be traditional AI, before this it used to be big data specialty. I would say, if you have the choice, and if you're up for it, I would suggest go for computer science as the fundamental foundation. Don't go for all this fancy stuff, because these are things that you can learn. And I used to believe in that view until very recently, when AI became so intricate with the way that we are not only just learning about the tooling on top, we're also learning the math under the hood. That I said, okay, you know what, AI takes a lot of extra effort to actually learn. You could just be a passive consumer on top who's just using the tools to build something else, or you could actually understand the whole stack right below. And this is the only time I would probably say, okay, maybe doing a specialty in AI would really help. But that being said, most universities are still behind in a lot of those. Right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, I actually believe in apprenticeship programs. I think we really need to bring these back, and universities can help a lot in this. So in India, and I know, I think in Malaysia also has the same concept, and probably Singapore does. In India, they had this concept of polytechnic places, right? Polytechnic colleges, where vocational courses, you go out of a school, like probably instead of the final 2 years, you go into this place where you're actually taught a trade, right? And coding and programming and even entrepreneurship and software should be a trade over there, right? Where you're actually going in, you're becoming an apprentice somewhere else. And I think having that work experience early on really helps you, because as much as AI tools are going to be there, having a work discipline, right, and trying to be at a place where you're able to crunch things that are happening in work, whether it is business related, whether it is not, whether it's political, and so on and so forth. You need experience for that. And I've always noticed folks who have gone through the vocational path always have a certain amount of maturity beforehand itself when they join the industry full-fledged, right? And so apprenticeship programs, hands down, I think we need to do a big revamp of what's happening. Boot camps are literally dead at this point. Most people have written that off also. Boot camps are just like massive scale training programs, which is the way I see it. Of course, you may leverage the alumni that is there as part of that, but most boot camps are shutting down more or less. So there's no alumni anymore, right? For that. The other one is about the domain, and I agree 100% about the domain part, because you may be a developer. It's about labeling yourself. What kind of a developer are you? Are you a developer in just anything, or are you a developer in a specific business domain, right? And that business domain adds the extra value to the skill that you have, because then that's how you differentiate yourself from the crowd. Give you an example. I've gone through multiple domains myself, and every time I move into a role, I always leverage whatever I have learned from those domains also over here. AWS In AWS, I leveraged my domains from telco, which was in Huawei. I leveraged my domain from disaster recovery. I leveraged my domain from building mobile apps for enterprises. So there was a lot of experience that I brought in that helped me to do that, because I would never just say, "Hey, I am just a developer." I would say, "Hey, I have this domain knowledge, and it helped me." And I think a lot of the youngsters these days don't realize that there is a value in becoming a developer in a specific domain and learning the functional part of that. But beyond that, like you mentioned, yeah, I mean, the scary part, that's always going to be there. There isn't much that you can do to avoid that, but at least there is a way forward, I would say. And I always say, don't worry too much about what's going to happen in the next 3 years, 4 years, and figure that out. Try to find out what's the immediate next step you can take, and take it. Right? It's like the fog of war. You can only make the visibility clear if you at least move ahead, right? Or you move sideways, right? Or you move a step back to understand where else you want to go. But you need to keep moving. You can't just stay static and hope that things will change. It doesn't happen like that.
There's a huge movement that a lot of folks are saying, like there are low code, no code approaches, and also vibe coding. Is this a good sort of starting point for students who are starting off with on a tech career?
Uh,
What's
so
your
just
take?
on vibe coding, just on vibe coding, and you touched on raw nerve. So I actually am not a fan of vibe coding at all. In fact, I have a website that I created on GitHub. I can probably share the links later for the viewers and listeners. I call it calm coding, and calm coding is something that I stumbled upon when I was trying to create some meaning with the experience that I had of creating some form of like a format and templates before jumping into solving a problem with AI, which a lot of companies have now started using to build this format of how to do SDLC the structured way with AI tools. We are seeing a lot of that. I created a site almost a year ago for this, and I don't think vibe coding makes any sense. Vibe coding is good for just literally just trying to get something out quickly and make thinking that maybe it's going to help you. The other thing about people learning vibe coding, I think I would separate that from learning the AI tools, the coding AI tools, and understanding how to leverage the tool and where, versus just using vibe coding by letting go and telling just push everything and then we'll figure it out later. I think vibe coding is you have to be careful with how where it is positioned in the software development lifecycle. Prototypes is fine. If you're trying to build something in production, you probably need to be very strongly intentioned on what you're trying to do. And you would instead be much more preferable in using the tool to fix something specific where you're the one who's reviewing it, making sure things are working fine. So the foundation knowledge is still important. Hands down, it's still important, because it's almost like telling, okay, I'm never going to teach my kid how to do addition and subtraction. I'll just give them a calculator. This is the way I look at it. Of course, some people may have trouble with an analogy, but what I say is, if you understand the math, then you use the tools to scale doing math faster, right? But not understanding the math basically means that you'll always be beholden to those tools later. So yeah, I would definitely say that folks should understand the foundations. And you look at it this way: the AI tools are making it easier for you to understand the foundations better. So you probably want to leverage that and do it. Go through like Harvard or Stanford have the CS50 program, right? If it's hard for you to follow all of that courses directly, use an AI tool to help you to crunch some of those tough problems or tough concepts so that you can then understand CS50 better, right? So don't make it a crutch, make it an aid, or make it an assistant along the way in your journey.
AI is actually has made a lot of things like have reduced boundaries between like technology, people who knows technology, people who don't know technology. It has reduced geographical, geographically people are like very well connected. Like it's just one world kind of thing at the moment. So it's interesting your take on like vibe coding. The calm coding that you're mentioning is now spec driven development.
Exactly the same. And when I did the spec driven also came around the same time. And I think a lot of people who have been in the industry for quite some time maybe had this feeling that something's off with this whole vibe coding thing. In fact, some random dude I think called it vibe coding, and that's how it caught on. And I run AI communities over here in the Middle East also, and we saw a trend of this. where everyone was saying, I'm vibe coding this and I don't need developers and I this. And I'm like, guys, I mean, vibe coding is just a fad. And we are seeing that already, right? People are calling it out already by saying, okay, we see some issues. Sometimes they're memes, sometimes they're true about people putting vibe coded stuff in production and then things failing miserably. Recently, there was a conversation going around in Hacker News about how there is like AI slop for content that is created by AI, just without any heart and without any intention. You're having the same thing with code, where junior developers or developers who are just getting started are lazily coding. They do vibe coding and they generate so much amount of code and they don't review the code. They just dump it on someone who has to review the code, and they hope that the person who's reviewing will figure out if there's a problem or not, right? So we are seeing a lot of these weird dynamics emerge, which I hope are just blips and probably will even that out. That's where like seniors, tenured people in the industry are coming and saying, no, let's have intention, let's have spec driven development, calm coding, for example, or any other approach that allows you to have purpose when you're trying to build something, and then use that. But it's funny you said that about global part, because we are seeing this in the community still, right? In some form or the other, in tech communities, whether it's the people who are curious about how to do web coding, or even the speakers who come and speak. They come and they just proclaim, hey, I vibe coded this in half an hour, everyone's clapping, yay. And we are like, and as an organizer, we are like, okay, and are you going to tell about, okay, what worked, what didn't work, or maybe do this when in a very specific scenario? No, I mean, people just like celebrating that this dude was successful in creating something in half an hour. And probably that's a bit of the social media influence, but yeah, that's probably a story for another day.
So Fuzz, you were like actually tapping into this bits and pieces about like how militia works, how like you have experience in working in Mina. Can you tell a little bit about like how these two markers are very different from each other, from a technological point of view, from a community point of view? Like, what's up with these two places?
So from a I would try to like combine the narrative between community and technology, because I think you see how technology is adopted in the way the communities are actually run, right? So in ASEAN, for example, a lot of the places, like whether it's Malaysia, it's Singapore, or Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and so on and so forth, you have a very strong local population that is part of the ecosystem. They're part of the tech ecosystem. You see them as developers, as testers, as product managers, and even software development managers, and so on and so forth. And because they are from the country, they actually have this thing of showing some form of a journey of how tech has evolved in that country or in that ecosystem. Uh, Ambitions are definitely there, and we see that in ASEAN, the growth of ASEAN. And take Indonesia, for example. In the last 12 to 15 years, how multiple unicorns in ASEAN have come actually from Indonesia alone. That's a story I keep telling to people over here in the Middle East, and they don't believe me. But I said, I mean, I was there when we saw like companies like Gojek and Bukalapa, for example, Traveloka and all, they expanded so much so that they have had an impact on the industry. They've had an impact with the government, for example, in Indonesia. And I would say it's like the communities in ASEAN are always about showing that, hey, we know we are adopting tech. We're trying to solve our local problems first, because it will make our lives easier, and that's where they come from. They always try to make our lives easier over there and then move ahead, right? And of course, a lot of the startups, they grow across the region, because that's how you can grow the market, grow capital, revenue, and so on and so forth. Now, in the Middle East, it's a bit different, because it depends on which country you're talking about in the Middle East also. So, for example, when I moved back from Malaysia to Dubai, Dubai is a mostly expat community. So we say usually 80% of the community is actually from the outside, and 20% are locals, right? Or the Arabs over there. And then you have expats like Arab expats, Indians, Pakistanis, folks from Europe, from America, and so many other places, right? And because of the high percentage of expat community, it's also a place where it's a transitionary population. So that you have people coming and you have people going. And I know for a fact, because my father's generation, a lot of the people are not there anymore, right, in the country anymore. They've all left. So there is this massive disconnect of showing the tech history of the region, or the tech history of how tech has evolved in the region, because predominantly tech has been a consumer market over there. It's always been like, okay, somebody's building it somewhere and then we're bringing it here, and we'll just operate on that. And this was the case until I left in 2015, right? 2015 is when I left UAE and went to Malaysia. I had not, then I never went back to the Middle East for like a few years. But of course, I had connections and I was talking to people and doing stuff. And then when I came back, I was like, I mean, the startups had grown by then. We have like startups like similar to what Gojek is there. You have like Talabat, you have Kareem, and so on and so forth. These are startups that have grown over the region. You have Noon, for example, and they are folks who are showing how startups can be built by with a community, and they are also the ones who are promoting tech communities in general. So we see that there is some kind of I would say support from the local startup ecosystem. But the main difference I would say is that tech communities are way more accessible in ASEAN versus the Middle East, and especially UAE. And the other countries are different. I would say there's a more vibrant tech community in Egypt, for example, which is also one of the countries I was working and handling, versus like let's say in some other country like maybe Qatar, for example, and so on and so forth, because it's a very local population over there. You have a lot of developers in Egypt, lots of awesome developers in Egypt, and they have like multiple events happening in colleges and so on and so forth. So I would say Egypt probably has a similar like ecosystem or a pull like what we saw in Malaysia. But as an organizer for tech communities, I would say it was way easier for me to do stuff in Malaysia than in the UAE. I keep telling about logistics being a pain and a challenge. And there was a recently someone from the Dubai Future Foundation had put up a post that went viral, where we all from the community, we all contributed, saying that hey, he was asking about what can we do better in the UAE for enabling communities, especially for AI and stuff. And I had mentioned that our biggest challenge in the UAE is logistics, right? Because Dubai is an expensive place, and you can compare that with Singapore and say Singapore is expensive, but in Singapore you have companies and colleges and universities who are willing to open their doors and say host a meetup over here, come and do this, because they know that just hosting a meetup and giving like a bunch of sponsorship money just for pizzas will help them to like contribute to the ecosystem, which is still not the case in Dubai. In Dubai, most events are still seen as a networking event. It has changed, alhamdulillah, in the last few years. It has changed quite a bit, and for good reason also. But there is still a lot of work to be done, I would say. So even if technology is one thing, and the shift between the consumer mentality to the builder mentality, which is happening in Dubai, thankfully, especially with AI, it's accelerating right now. We still see the challenge of running communities is still there, and we hope that we get support from the local ecosystem, right, from the tech ecosystem over there, from colleges and universities, especially over there, so that they can open up the doors and host more events, have people come in. And to be honest, we all know, we are all from the community background, that if only you run more events and run more communities, you'll get more communities and events. It's a flywheel, end of the day, right? And not having that will always create disruption, and then someone comes in and has to start things from scratch all over again.
I know in Dubai there's like a lot of movement towards AI, and then a lot of folks sort of take example from what Dubai is doing at the moment. So you're doing something very interesting, Fuzz, in Dubai with AI Tinkerers. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, totally. I'll probably preface that a bit about how the Dubai government has been key in a lot of the AI initiatives over there. So I'm also a Coders HQ ambassador in Dubai. So it's a program that the government had started immediately after the pandemic, where they picked people who are contributing to communities, and then promoting coding, right, and programming across communities at different age levels, right. So I'm part of that group, and the government over there has been super active in this. So I think the challenge is never over in what was at the policy level. It's always about on the ground with people who are doing it. And this is where AI Tinkerers comes in. So one of the challenges we've had in the region is that a lot of the communities, if they're even sponsored, they're usually sponsored by a vendor, right? And vendor sponsorship for an event always comes with a certain rider, which means you have to allow promotion of products, and that puts down builders. So when I'm a developer and I'm coming to a community event and I'm coming to learn something, I'm happy to learn about the tool. I don't have a problem. But a lot of the events, the so-called big events that happen also by vendors and all, are very salesy, are very marketing. They try to pitch their marketing stuff. They never come and show, okay, how did we build this product? How do we actually do programming? How do we do coding in our organization? And we are seeing the same thing with the AI stuff. AI tool companies are coming in, they're showing, hey, use our tool, it's awesome, you can build all this, but they don't come and show the engineering aspect of it. They don't show how they're building other things. And this is where AI Tinkerers comes in. So AI Tinkerers is a global community that started in Seattle, and I run the Middle East chapters right now. So we run it in 3 cities as of now, which is in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and in Riyadh. And we focus on builders. And the way we do this is interesting. It is a curated community. As much as I prefer open doors for everyone, we realized, and it is the ethos of the AI Tinkerers community, to have a curated group where you only get builders, because the thinking behind it is simple. If you are a builder, you want to meet builders, so you want to go to a community where there are only builders. And how do you vet whether someone's a builder? Well, they show whether they are actually coding stuff, and they put it on GitHub. So one of the things we do as organizers is that we check, okay, if they apply with their GitHub profile, it has to be an active profile. They need to have repos. I mean, it has to be sample codes. Of course, we're not expecting you to show your work and sensitive projects over here, even though I do get those questions regularly. And it's more about showing that, hey, you're a tinkerer, right? You're actually building stuff, you're hacking things around, connecting things together. And when you come in, you meet like-minded people. You meet other people who are maybe tinkering on something else. And we have grown this community from the initial days with probably like 10, 15 people to over like 600, 700 people across 2 countries. And it's growing, right? It's growing at its own organic pace. And our demos are slowly being highlighted. We're showing that, hey, there is a builder's mentality in the Middle East. People love to build stuff. We're not just about big ambitions, which we are. I believe one of the big differences over here in other countries is that in the Middle East, especially UAE, Saudi, the ambitions are massive, right? They're massive ambitions, which helps fuel the innovation cycle over here. But one thing that was really missing was the builders muscle, which is now growing. And we are showing the AI Tinkerers community highlight these builders, right? And it doesn't matter where they are from. No, it doesn't matter which country they're from or which nationality and so on and so forth. All of them come with one common thing. I have a demo and I want to show it. And that comes in the whole meetup, where the meetup is always about demos. People come in, they show their code, they show things breaking, they walk through their code, and the only person who runs the slides is me as an organizer, right? Nobody else does. And that has created its own kind of community now, where people are like, I want to see more demos. And they in fact are raising the bar, where when we get the feedback from the people, they're saying, okay, I think we have had enough of these kind of demos. We want to see more bigger demos. And those same people who create the demos, who are watching the demos, they themselves get excited and they come and say, next time I'm going to do a demo over here. And I think that's a great cycle of growing the community with builders and people who want to show stuff in real time.
And it's very important that people show the real how the building process works, and then like it's okay to like sort of fail, and then you learn from it and move on, right? I actually saw your post that you made a comment on the and then you were talking about like how important it is to have like location support from Dubai government, and then how that can help a lot more activities to be planned out, which I saw. And then there was like a lot of people who had contributed as well. Like I'll put a screenshot to it in this video as well, so people can have a look at it. Fuzz, I know you miss Malaysia. Which food do you miss the most?
Oh, that's such a tough question. In fact, that's the most toughest question of the interview today. For folks who know me, my love for the food over there in Malaysia. It's amazing, and I think it's a reflection of the culture and the people over there also. It's hard for me to say which specific food I miss, but I'll probably say three from the three different kinds of cuisines we get in Malaysia. I mean, I miss nasi lemak, the most basic food, because it was something that powered me throughout my times in Cyberjaya when I was there in the beginning. For breakfast, we used to hang out as a team in the morning. We'll come in a bit early. We'll just go and have some quick breakfast and come back. So nasi lemak is something one I miss. And then on the other cuisine, I miss char kway teow a lot. That used to be the cheap dinner that we would always have when we are staying out late nights trying to figure out a bug that's happening in production, so on and so forth. And also the banana leaf, when we are like, okay, we want to have a lazy afternoon, and we are like, okay, we'll just go out of office, we'll go and we'll stick around in a banana leaf place and have like everything on the leaf, and then have a lazy late evening kind of a thing at work. The food over there is something that I'm passionate about, and it's hard. And ever since I've left Malaysia, it's been hard to find it, to be honest. So anyone who's hearing this, I mean, if you know of places in the Middle East where there's like good Malaysian food coming in, please do let me know. Always look forward to making a trip back to Malaysia. I did that last in 2023, and I'm hoping to again do another trip soon. Back to Malaysia, and maybe even attend some more community meetups, speak at meetups also. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a debate. whose nasi lemak is much better? Is it Singapore? Is it Malaysia?
Oh,
So
hands down,
you're
it's
voting.
Malaysia. It's hands down, it's Malaysia. I can go viral for this moment. I don't care. You can quote this dude, this Orang Asing over here who's saying all this, but no, hands down, it's Malaysia. And in fact, I've come to Singapore and I've said this in one of the, so AWS, when we joined AWS, we had this massive internal summit or something. I forgot what the name was. And one of the things they did was this food culture thing because we were all coming from different countries. And someone actually from the Singapore team mentioned that our nasi lemak is better. And I shouted from behind, no, it's not. It's Malaysia. And everyone's like, who is this guy? So yeah, I mean, personally, yeah, I absolutely say that the nasi lemak is better in Malaysia. But of course, each people have their perks. There's lots of awesome food in Singapore. I've gone to the hawker stalls over there also, and I think that's the beauty of the place, right? And it brings back a lot of memories of not just the food, but the discussions around the food. And I think that's the key part of the engagement that I used to have over there.
That's true. Like food unites people.
Food unites people, yes. As much as we see it, yes.
So first, I have one last question for you as a part of this discussion. So first, you have seen as someone who has been in the industry, but also at the same time, you are someone who can break down um, very complex technical concepts into bite size, and you've been a very good sort of explainer as well. So in today's day and age, I think a lot of these youngsters, people who are in tech, are actually struggling to build this muscle of non-technical skills. So can you tell us a little bit about like your journey in building some of these technical, non-technical aspects of your career that help you to grow?
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting you said this because I am seeing that with the AI tools coming in, it's not becoming any easier for the people. So I'm meeting a lot. I'll give you an example, right? So I've been in the cloud since 2012, right? So 13 years of doing cloud from the beginning, from a very, very long time. And I know the pain points we had that the cloud addressed before, right? A lot of people don't have this background anymore. Anyone who's graduated in the last 5 years has probably never moved anything to the from somewhere else to the cloud. And it's and we've noticed that, and some of my ex colleagues from AWS also talk about this on LinkedIn, where they say mention that they've realized that there's a new crowd of people who have never heard of anything on prem. They've only heard of things in the cloud, and they don't understand why the cloud does the way it does right now, right? And one of the ways I would say with the AI tools, especially what's happening is that they have got so used to going to a AI tool and asking for explain this to me in same principle, same words, that they're slowly losing the muscle of trying to break down problems and then trying to convey to somebody else. So when you mentioned about what helped me, this is exactly what I did, right? So in the old days, only way we would learn is we would read something and then we would try to explain it to somebody else. And forget about meetups and community things. Those are things that would anyway happen on the outside. But in your daily work, if I'm trying to work with a team member and I'm saying I'm going to use like, let's say from the Java space that I worked in, right? If I'm going to use a specific design pattern and the person doesn't understand it, I have to explain it to that other person to say, okay, hey, this is how you build so and so things. This is how you do it. This is why a design pattern like this would really, really work. So we were in that mode of always trying to explain why we are doing XYZ, right? The other thing is, over the years, we started picking up this idea of trying to do whiteboarding. We try to draw diagrams across to explain architectures, to explain any concept that we're doing. And that's a skill that helped me quite a bit. I, in fact, picked that up a lot in Malaysia before joining AWS. And that's also one of the things that helped me in AWS a lot as a solution architect, later as a developer advocate also. Because explaining things on a whiteboard has a totally different like value and an approach, right? Where in real time you're breaking down a problem. So for the folks who are new right now, who are not sure how to do this, I would say go back to the basics and try to take any concept that you're working on, even if it's the AI stuff that you're learning. Maybe you're learning AI white papers, you're learning like foundational stuff. See if you can explain it to someone who's younger to you. See if you can explain it to someone who's not from technology, for example, right? To your parents, for example, to anyone, your siblings. There's a famous subreddit that's on called ELI5, right? Explain like I'm five, right? And use the ethos of that to try to break down things. Because when you exercise the muscle of breaking things down, that's when you also build that muscle of, okay, how do I learn things better? And you'll build mental models, you'll build like ways to break down problems, because believe me, when and we are always going to be working in a space of ambiguity in any workplace we go. Amazon is very known for that. In fact, they hire people who are culturally fit for operating in ambiguous environments, right? And I see this more happening more in other companies also. Don't expect to go to a place where everything is thought out for you. You have to operate in ambiguous places, which means you should be willing to break down problems into bite-sized things. You should be able to figure those things out. Some of these things you can learn on your own. Some of these things you have to go through that experience and build that muscle. But doing that really helps you quite a bit.
How did going to communities help you? Because you gave your first talk in 2017. How was it that, like you were explaining, it was like the demo went like horribly wrong and people wanted to like come and help you. It can be like hitting your rock bottom at that point, right?
It is.
But
It is.
still you continue.
So I would say the community is a very strange place. To be honest, I still think it's a strange place because if you fail on giving a talk, you don't feel despair. And I've seen this, it's not just me. I know this from a lot of people. You don't feel despair. You feel an adrenaline rush, and you think the next time I get a chance to do this, I'm going to do better, and then you double down on that, and then you make it better, right? And it's not, that wasn't the only time I failed. I failed miserably in a lot of like workshops that I've run. Probably a workshop that never worked out for a long time, and the participants were unhappy, and I felt really bad. I felt like, you know what, I should just stop doing communities. And then I would use that as a lesson. As much as it sounds cheesy, but I think that's what really worked. And for a lot of people, that's what works. The other thing is that eventually you start realizing that, okay, I have an opportunity to experiment with certain things like formats, like doing architecture diagrams, for example. And that's also where, when I break down problems in front of people, people are like amazed that, okay, there is someone over here who's doing a whiteboard in real time to show me how they're actually trying to build something. And so the community space opens up more avenues to experiment with certain modes that then I can then use back in work. There have been innumerable times that I've learned something or I've done something in the community that I've taken back to my workplace, and that has also helped me, right? And vice versa, where I learned something new at work and then I want to share it with people. I think that's always going to be a cycle in that sense. But from a community perspective, that's the way I would look at it, right? Whiteboarding helps, and Reinvent is very popular for a format of talks called Chalk Talks, which is never recorded, which most people don't know, but it's the most sought after sessions by audiences. It's always packed. It's always like lines waiting outside. And I have delivered until I left AWS. I have delivered what, one, two, three, four, probably like five, six. I've delivered six Chalk Talks already in the span of 3 years, right? At AWS Reinvent. And it's these skills of whiteboarding that really helped me to deliver those awesome sessions, which the audience loved, right? The ratings were like really good for it. People were like happy. They were saying we understood things from someone from Amazon. So never discount any of these approaches of explaining things. Try to leverage it and then try it out. The only way you can learn it is by experimenting. You try it out. It may work once, it may not work the other time, and then you'll find a way of moving forward, and keep doing it, right? And maybe do it online, do it in a community space always, and you'll get feedback from people also.
Great, some great advices, Fuzz. Thank you so much for joining for the discussion. I'm pretty sure folks who are watching and people who missed seeing Fuzz from both from Malaysia and from Dubai as well. Great to have Fuzz on the show. Fuzz is famous in LinkedIn. You can go and search for him and then add him. And if you have any questions after the show, I'm pretty sure we are looking forward to hosting Fuzz again in the future. Thanks, Fuzz, for joining.
Thanks, Shafraz. Thanks for having me. And awesome to everyone.
All right.
Have an awesome community life, all you folks listening in.